Welcome back. Uh, Here, particularly the market, the industrial revolution was completely dependent. Its productions were dependent on the market system, right? The raw materials that was being imported from the America, Australia, and the Eastern Europe and other parts of the world. First thing. Second, the produced the huge amount of the productions began to be the effect. So these were not consumed and these were not sorted within the British market. No, it was this England was completely dependent for its supply of the goods and its manufactured understand on the foreign markets like the India. They influx the huge amount of their manufactured goods in our Indian markets. So they were and on non-metallic machinery. Okay, they were also dependent on the India or the other country non-metallic machinery with a few links to the other branches of the industry and moreover the non-metallics. And this industry was also dependent. The British industry was dependent on the and with the few links of the other branches of the industries. Metallic machineries and steam power was rare until much later in 19th century. अब ये भी देखा जाए कि जैसे मेटालिक आपका मशीनरीज हैं, मेशनॉलिक जो ह्यूज मशीन्स थे, this was the very much just costlier, and only a very few industrialists were capable of establishing these metallic machines until the later in the 19th century में अगर देखा जाए until much later in 19th century these huge machines were only planted or the installed by the a very few industrialists in England. ये नहीं था कि large scale huge machines had been there. No, the rest of the manufacturers were now going through understand and producing through the traditional shape mode of productions. They were giving the through the traditional shape. So I have already mentioned that industrial revolutions happened, okay, but it was the most supported by the other small scale or the traditional mode of the production. The huge machines were only possessed by a very few in the till the late of the 19th century. जो बहुत से productions के जो machines थे metallic machines, only a few industrialists had there. They were dependent on, or moreover, and the rapid growth in British imports and exports from say 1780 से देखा जाए occurred because of the resumptions of the trade with Northern America and the War of American Independence interrupted. Now we know that one thing is that what the American War of Independence. One thing is that America was under the control of the British control. Understand? Although there were governors there, but the America, okay, was the just a 13 colonies of America were under the control of the British control. Understand? So where the Britain raised the maximum used to be the raise the maximum taxes from America. Understand? Or even the to and the now on the other hand we know very well that the Britain was now generally engaged in the international war. Understand? So the Britain, the British government required the much just taxes and the much resources for the meeting this international war. Understand? So the British government decided to decided to introduce the Stamp Act here. Okay, so now the Stamp Act it means that any legal transactions, the papers has to be the purchased. A governmental papers Stamp Act had to be the purchase and if, for any the legal transactions के लिए आप कितने stamps जो होते हैं that is the purchased. So that through that and moreover the British government now the certain goods only be the exported to the Britain. The 13 colonies, understand, they had to be the only export the certain goods only to the Britain. Understand? So this sharply the Americans reacted against the British government. Although they were under the control of the British government, Okay. Or one thing is that, so the American, all the these Americans were who? They were actually the natives of the Europeans. They were Europeans, and the Americans say these Americans used to call that the mother countries. The Britain is now just addressed as a mother country. As the British government raised the taxes upon the American settlers, understand? So they went against it. They raised the voice against the British, and now they give the slogan that no taxation without representation, no taxation without, because since the Americans had the no any representation in the British Parliament, although the British parliaments now control their economy, control their political and sovereignty, but the Americans had no say in the British parliament. So they gave the slogans, and ultimately Boston Tea Party, okay, where the Boston Tea Party is the one of the incidents from there the American War of Independence began. Okay, or then after the what happened where the now at the on the cargo the goods and the chest had to be the loaded. So the some of the revolutionaries in guise of the or in guise of the workers, dock workers, they put on the dock workers clothes and threw all the chests, understand, into the sea, or they threw all the chests into the sea. And now, then after, from there, this American War of Boston Tea Party is the called, and American War of Independence begins there. And this, although Lord Canning, Lord Canning, understand, but now he has to be, he was sent to the just suppress this war of independence, but he got the defeat. American and the 13 colonies of the Americans, 13 colonies, they now held their meetings in the Philadelphia, and where did they decided to form a republican form of the government, and finally driven out the British suzerainty from the America, and ultimately America in the, we know that in 1700, yes, 76, 1776, America fought and declared the independence. Understand? So this is the call the during this phase and during this time. Understand? During this period, the America from the America, the constant raw materials like even the cotton. Cotton used to be the supplied, used to be the imported from the America for the British Manchester, Lancashire, Birmingham, उसके लिए बिग्स मशीन्स के लिए from the raw materials, that this was the now badly interrupted. As a result, what happened? The British now became the perturbed, became perturbed. So they now they just gave paid their attention towards the Indian cottons or in Deccans, and Deccan was the regions of our India from where the cottons were being supplied. So they promoted the more productions of the cottons in the Deccan area, and during that time, understand, the agents now provided the money and the advance money for the productions to the cotton cultivators. Understand? Or this now boom in the Indian cotton production. Indian experienced the much boom, the boom of the productions. But actually, as the American War of Independence ended, or the this issues and the conflict was settled down, then after the again the imports of the cotton's import lines opened up, and the line of export and import established, installed. Understand? So then, under this condition, line of controls, a line of the supply was installed. Okay, so then so during this time, okay, again the productions boomed in the England, because the England restored its production, restored its supply, and moreover, or during this American War of Independence, next day the we can see. the North America had the restored independence had to be interrupted. This growth was the recorded as the being sharp only because of its started from a low point. इसलिए यहाँ पे एक miscalculation था कि now because of the American War of Independence, the protection point and protection point of the Britain had got gone down. Understand at a very base and bottom level. Okay, production. As the restored, as the American War of this issues was resolved, so then after the production say in a very tremendous way, in a very steep way, productions rise in. So now this is the under this period. Understand during this period, it began to be the called as a industrial growth. Understand? Industrial growth. It was the miscalculated. Although this situation became normal, everything is so steep productions happened during this time. Indicators of economic changes occurring before and after 1815 or 20 suggest that sustained industrialization was to be seen after rather than before these dates. और इसके बाद देखा जाए कि इंडस्ट्रियल इंडिकेटर्स जो इकोनॉमिक इंडिकेटर्स हैं इंडिकेटर्स ऑकरिंग बिफोर एंड आफ्टर द 1815 एंड 20 का अगर हमें ग्रोथ देखा जाए इकोनॉमिक चेंजेस अगर देखें 15 एंड 20 सजेस्ट दैट सस्टेन्ड इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन was to be seen after rather than before these dates और जो सस्टेन्ड जो प्रोडक्शन है understand it was seen later production happened very increased production but अगर हम पहले की प्रोडक्शन देखते हैं before 1820 15 और 20s के पहले का तो that production was a very slack production very slow production वेरी लो प्रोडक्शन वाज अगर हम इकोनॉमिक के चेंजेस के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से देखते हैं तो दैट चेंजेस एक्चुअली हैपेंड आफ्टर द 1815 और 20s के ऑनवर्ड्स जो टाइम पीरियड है उसमें चेंजेस ड्यूरिंग दैट टाइम पीरियड चेंजेस हैपेंड नॉट बिफोर दैट और द डिकेड आफ्टर द 1793 हैड द एक्सपीरियंस द डिसरप्टिव इफेक्ट्स ऑफ द फ्रेंच रिवॉल्यूशन फिर देखो यहाँ पे और नेपोलियन अगर हम एक चीज और यहाँ पे कैलकुलेट करें 1793 onwards and between the 1815 के बीच अगर आप देखें तो this period was the this period was in the from the European history from the viewpoint of the European history this period was the period of the period or this period was the history of the Europe was the one country that was France. The history of the Europe was the one man. France was the one man. That was Napoleon. That person was the Napoleon. Understand? The entire politics revolved around the Napoleon. Or now, during this time, okay, in French Revolution also interrupted the Industrial Revolution. अगर हम 1793 ऑनवर्ड्स और 15 तक देखेंगे तो उसमें मैक्सिमम तो इंटरप्शन हुआ इसके ट्रेड एंड कॉमर्स में British trade and commerce. We know very well that the Napoleon, understand? Napoleon now followed the policy of the continental system. He now launched the continental system. Continental system. Under this system, Napoleon now banned. Napoleon completely banned or completely restricted. Understand? And all the European country, Napoleon forced all the European country not having the trade relations with the Britain. So that during this time, the Britain again got the downwards production happened. Downwards fall in the trade and commerce, international trade and commerce fallen during this period. Now the Britain could not do her supply. Understand to the European countries completely blocked due to the Napoleon continental policy. Now that they supplied continued their supply to the America, to India, and to Australia through the ships and through the but the European market जहां तक हम देखते हैं कि यूरोप में इनका जो ट्रेड एंड कॉमर्स था उसका बहुत ही बैड इम्पैक्ट पड़ा ब्रिटेन पर, कॉन्टिनेंटल पॉलिसी की नेपोलियंस की। ओके, और इसके साथ साथ फ्रेंच रिवॉल्यूशन और इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन इज एसोसिएटेड विद द ग्रोइंग इन्वेस्टमेंट ऑफ द कंट्रीज वेल्थ ऑन द कैपिटल। एक और भी फैक्टर्स है इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन का, वन फीचर्स कि नाउ द ग्रोइंग इन्वेस्टमेंट्स, इंडस्ट्रियल रिवॉल्यूशन, कंट्रीज वेल्थ एंड द कैपिटल फॉर्मेशन। उसमें क्या होता है कि इन्वेस्टमेंट होता है। इंडस्ट्रियल रिवॉल्यूशन का एक फीचर्स होता है किसी भी इंडस्ट्रीज का कि हम इन्वेस्टमेंट्स करते हैं, कभी अधिक से अधिक मच मोर पैसा लगाते हैं, मनी, वेल्थ, वेल्थ इन द कैपिटल फॉर्मेशन, और उससे हम क्या करते हैं, कैपिटल फॉर्मेशन करते हैं। 10 रुपीज हम क्रिएट अगर इन्वेस्ट करेंगे तो हम कैपिटल प्रॉफिट हमारा क्या करेगा, कैपिटल फॉर्मेशन करेगा। अंडरस्टैंड, कैपिटल फॉर्मेशन का मतलब कि हमारे पास मान लीजिए सपोज दैट आई हैव द मनी, मच मनी, और दैट मनी इज इन द बैंक, तो कैपिटल फॉर्मेशन नहीं कर रहा है। हम अगर घर में पैसा रख दे कैपिटल फॉर्मेशन नहीं कर रहा है। अगर हम इफ आई इन्वेस्ट फॉर द गेटिंग द मोर मनी फ्रॉम, मेकिंग द मोर मनी फ्रॉम दैट कैपिटल, तो दैट इज द मनी फॉर्मेशन। इसका क्या है कि हम मनी फॉर्मेशन कर रहे हैं, कैपिटल फॉर्मेशन है, हम कैपिटल फॉर्मेशन, आई एम डूइंग द कैपिटल फॉर्मेशन। तो मोर एंड मोर अगर देखा जाए फ्रॉम दैट, तो इंडस्ट्रीज का जो ग्रोथ की रेट है, जो इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन का जो फीचर्स है, वो उसमें यही होता है कि इन्वेस्टमेंट्स और द मनी कैपिटल फॉर्मेशन का प्रोसेस बहुत तेज होता है, वेरी वेरी फास्ट किसी भी इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन में, कि कैपिटल फॉर्मेशंस एंड कैपिटल और बिल्डिंग इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर्स भी उसमें एक है, एंड इंस्टॉलिंग द न्यू मशीनरी, बिल्डिंग इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर्स, इंडस्ट्रियल रिवॉल्यूशन किसी भी इंडस्ट्रीज के ग्रोथ का, उसके साथ साथ इंस्टॉलिंग द न्यू मशीन्स with the raising the level of the efficient use of these facilities, efficient use of this all facility with the raising the productivity. These are the main features of the any industrial revolution. Okay, ये क्या होता है कि इंडस्ट्रियल रिवॉल्यूशंस के मेन फीचर्स होते हैं, मोर प्रोडक्टिव इन्वेस्टमेंट इन दिस सेंस grew steadily only after the 1820। अब देखा जाए कि जो प्रोडक्टिव इन्वेस्टमेंट था इंग्लैंड में, at only increased after the 1820 onwards, not before that। हम तो इंडस्ट्रियल रिवॉल्यूशन को कहते हैं कि 1760 से मानते हैं, या 70 से या 70 से, ये ईयर से मानते हैं, लेकिन बिफोर अगर देखा जाए इन्वेस्टमेंट्स जहां तक है, एज फार एज क्वेश्चन ऑफ द मच इन्वेस्टमेंट इन द कैपिटल फॉर्मेशन, इट इज ओनली सीन और द स्टडीड ओनली स्टडली ग्रीव आफ्टर द 1820 के बाद वो बढ़ता है इंग्लैंड का, अगर हम कैलकुलेशन, इकोनॉमिक कैलकुलेशन करें। And now as the levels of the productivity, or as the level of the productivity, यानी कि investment and the level of productivity now seen equal, uh, it was seen equal level of productivity जो है was seen equal even after the 1820 के बाद। तो हम कैसे, हाउ कैन वी, we have to be the argument, आपको ये आर्गुमेंट देना है, अंडरस्टैंड, कि क्या एक्चुअली ये इंडस्ट्रियल रिवॉल्यूशन था। इफ सो, तो यू हैव टू गिव द फेवर आर्गुमेंट्स, इफ नॉट तो यू हैव टू बी द गिव द अगेंस्ट दिस आर्गुमेंट्स, यू हैव टू प्रूव दैट you know it was not a industrial revolution। Many arguments and no facts we have to be the given, you have to be the give to support your answers। ओके, एक कॉन्ट्रास्ट व्यूज है कि भाई एक्चुअली ये था कि नहीं, वेदर द एंड सेंसेस ग्रीव स्टेडी द कॉटन, आयरन और इंजीनियरिंग इंडस्ट्रीज में देखा जाए हैड अकाउंटेड फॉर लेस देन हाफ ऑफ द इंडस्ट्रियल आउटपुट, एक पर्टिकुलरली जैसे कॉटन इंडस्ट्रीज है, आयरन है, इंजीनियरिंग इंडस्ट्रीज है, और अकाउंटेड फॉर लेस देन हाफ द इंडस्ट्रियल। 18 तक अगर देखा जाए, 1840 तक, तो कॉटन इंडस्ट्री है, इंजीनियरिंग है, और कॉटन इंडस्ट्री और आयरन इंडस्ट्री, ये 50% से कम था। इट्स ग्रोथ जो था दैट वाज लेस देन 50, और टेक्निकल प्रोग्रेस वाज नॉट लिमिटेड टू दीज ब्रांचेस। टेक्निकल प्रोसेस है नॉट लिमिटेड बट वाज विजिबल इन अदर ब्रांचेस टू। ओके, टेक्निकल जो प्रोग्रेस है अदर ब्रांचेस लाइक द एग्रीकल्चर, प्रोसेसिंग एंड द पॉटरी। हम पॉटरी इंडस्ट्री देखें, पॉटरी देखें, एग्रीकल्चरल अगर देखें, और या एग्रीकल्चर में, So heavy machines or the technology were used not only in this industry. Apart from these industries, much more machineries have been used in the agricultural sectors or even the pottery or the agriculture. वहां पे ये यूज किया जा रहा है टेक्नोलॉजी, हाईली टेक्नोलॉजी। तो हम ये क्यों केवल इंडस्ट्रियल रिवोल्यूशन, हम एक एग्रीकल्चरल रिवोल्यूशन लिखा। ये हम आर्गुमेंट है कि ये जो हैवी मशीन्स है ये हर फील्ड में एवरीवेयर इट वाज बीइंग यूज्ड, नॉट ओनली इन द इंडस्ट्री। मोर ओवर in later in searching for the answer at the why the British growth may have been the faster after the 15। अब यहाँ पे एक चीज देखना है कि भाई 1815 के बाद after the battle of Waterloo, so why this industry now rapidly grew? Historians have pointed to the fact that from the 60s to the 50s, Britain tried to do things simultaneously to industrialize। ब्रिटेन ने दो काम किया इस ईयर के बीच में, to fight wars in the Europe as North America and the India। Britain was now strongly very much engaged in the war। एक तो फ्रेंच वॉर्स विद द फ्रांस अमेरिका से, और यहाँ भी इंडिया में भी ब्रिटेन वॉज, क्योंकि आप देखेंगे बिटवीन दिस पीरियड, अंडरस्टैंड the French with the France within the India, the four Karnataks wars the Britain fought on the Indian lands। The Britain was much more engaged in the international war within India, understand, for its for the expansion of the British colonial Raj in India, Britain was engaged not only in the Indian states or much more with the France। फ्रांस के साथ फोर कर्नाटक वार हुआ भारत में, इंडिया में। The whenever the any battles arose and the started in the Europe between the England and France, so on Indian lands, the two company, British East India Company and the French East India Company, now involved on the Indian lands here in the battles। तो फ्रांस मोस्टली देखा जाए इस इंडस्ट्रियलाइज fight Europe, North America and the India, it may possible have the failed with one। Britain was at the war for 36 out of these 60 years in the from the अगर 70-60 से देखा जाए तो Britain was 60 wars हुए all over, जिसमें कि 36 wars the Britain was engaged। So much of the wars which happened all over the world, whether in the on the European lands and whether on the other continents, Britain was involved in that। Capital that was borrowed used to fight the wars rather than the investment। अभी भी देखा जाता है कि जो बिटवीन the 70s है और 1760s के ऑनवर्ड्स आप देखेंगे और 1815 के बीच में, the most of the now the Britain borrowed the money not for the investments। Britain tried to raise the money not for the investment, for the meeting the wars। Yes, for meeting the wars, not the investment। इंडस्ट्रियल इन्वेस्टमेंट के लिए उसने लोन नहीं रेज किया for the and the fight the rather than investment as much 35% of the cost of the war was made by the taxing people's incomes। जो टैक्स जो वार में पैसा इन्वेस्ट हो रहा था तो 35% of the money for the war meetings for the from the taxes, and workers were transferred out of the factory and farmed to the army। और इसके साथ ब्रिटेन में अगर एक और इतिहास देखेंगे कि were even the workers when the Britain was engaged in the severe and serious war, even the workers they had been the transformed from the factory workers to the army। A conscription यानी कि forced appointment and recruitment was being done, understand। तो वर्कर्स को ब्रिटेन क्या किया, अपॉइंट किया, अपनी आर्मी में रिक्रूट्स किया for the meeting the wars, because the wars were the sovereign wars। and now food prices rose to the sharply that the poor had the little money left for the buying consumers goods। फूड प्राइस पे तो कोई भी देखो ये नेचुरल है कि whenever the कोई भी कंट्री अगर वॉर में इंगेज्ड है, एनी कंट्री फाइटिंग द वॉर्स, तो दैट कॉजेज ये क्या करता है कि दिस कॉजेज दिस कॉजेज द प्राइस राइज। अल्टीमेटली प्राइस राइज होता है। मैंने कहा कि क्योंकि जितनी भी प्रोडक्शन सिस्टम है दैट इज द टुवर्ड्स डाइवर्टेड टुवर्ड्स द मीटिंग द वॉर रिक्वायरमेंट्स। वो वॉर रिक्वायरमेंट्स के लिए वो डाइवर्ट कर दिए जाते हैं प्रोडक्शन और मैन्युफैक्चरिंग की तरफ। क्योंकि वॉर इंडिविजुअल इज नॉट इम्पोर्टेंट, द कंट्री इज इम्पोर्टेंट। इफ ए कंट्री डाइज वंस, नेवर लाइज। Thousands of individuals die against the war, but the country once died, never dies. So wars में individual is not important, country is, nation is important. Lakhs of the individuals had to be the sacrifice for the protecting the country. if देश चला जाएगा, देश अगर हारेगा तो कोई भी देश, anybody। तो यहाँ पे ज्यादा से ज्यादा ब्रिटेन ने कंज्यूमर्स गुड्स से लिटिल मनी, नेपोलियंस पॉलिसीज ऑफ द blockade of the Napoleon's the policy applied against Britain's blockade, and the British reactions to them closed the European continent। मैंने कहा ना कि यूरोपियन कॉन्टिनेंटल पॉलिसी से अमेरिका, ये ब्रिटेन जो उसकी ब्रिटेन की जो रूट्स था ट्रेड्स एंड कॉमर्स, दैट वाज कंप्लीटली blocked, and the European blocked or closed the European continent destinations for more than the half of the British exports to the British traders, or the 50% से ज्यादा more than British जो traders से सप्लाई करते हैं यूरोपियन से lands were supplied, it was the completely blocked। the world industrials use with the word revolution is too limited। लेकिन यहाँ जो हम इंडस्ट्रियल करते हैं और that word is the you denotes that word for the revolution, that is too limited। we can understand on the basis of these factors, understand। तो जो हम कहते हैं कि word revolution, it was too limited in context of the industrial revolution for which we use it। The transformation of extended beyond the economic and the industrial spheres also। अब इसको कल हम पढ़ा देंगे, थोड़ा सा है नेक्स्ट में। आई एम गेटिंग टायर्ड। ओके, फिर हम इसको एक्सप्लेन करके लास्ट होगा और आई विल स्टार्ट द बिगिनिंग। टाइम इज अबाउट द 2 मिनट और है। समझ में आ रहा है? यू आर गेटिंग